Greetings, everyone! I'm the delicious and mythical GriffinMuffin.
Now, this is a bit of a random video for me to make. It's just, if you've been watching my videos recently, I've been getting back into World of WarCraft after, what, 12 years of not playing it. And, returning to World of WarCraft has not been what I expected at all. Well, returning to Battle for Azeroth in particular. Now, I want this to be kind of a controlled, actual, analytical video. Like, I don't want to just rant and rave and be like, oh my god, Blizzard is ruining the game and everything, they're catering to casuals and everything. No, I don't want to be like that, okay? I want to actually point out at the core what is bothering me about the game, but also point out what I really like about the game. And I've been trying to save up this video and try and do the video a bit down the track and do a bit more of a well-structured sort of video essay. But I just want to make a video. It's been so long since I actually made a proper video that I just want to make a video and talk about what I think of the game so far. By the way, I actually did write an article over on Obelisk, a gaming journal. I have the link for it down below. That's a bit more of a... that really digs into a bit more of what I find it's a bit more... it's a better critique of the game, in my opinion. This might be a bit more free form and a bit more... sorry, I bumped the mic there. It's a bit more free form and stuff like that, so yeah. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about Battle for Azeroth first. I'm going to talk about all the stuff that's actually come into that game, you know, since August or whatever that the game was released in. Then I'll move on to more of the actual core game of World of WarCraft, and then talk about what I'm doing from there. So, let's get one thing out of the way that's always on my mind when it comes to talking about what I find is troubling. Not troubling, but what really annoys me about this game sometimes is just the world quests. They're really boring and really unimaginative. Seriously, the world quests are quests that are taken from the main story of the game that you play in pretty much as a single player. I don't actually have fun when I do emissaries. I don't have fun, and I get the feeling that people accept it as a necessary evil, that emissaries are just, you just do them to get rep, or whatever, you know? Like, if there's an emissary that pops up, and it's like, oh, it's, Tortolans, and, okay, you need Tortolan rep, right? But the reward is gold. It's like, so I'm just doing this for rep. You don't feel like you're really getting a lot of reward out of it, because you're just getting, what, 700 gold? It's like, you can get that on a transmog run, you know? It just doesn't feel that rewarding. And maybe have, like, a choice of 2 rewards, so people can cater, like, oh, I don't need gold, but... and sometimes there's, like, world quests that reward pet charms, and I'm nothing against people who do the pet system in World of Warcraft, but I have no interest in it. So when I get pet charms, I'm like, what do I do with this? I know you can buy pets and then sell them, but I don't really feel that I need to commit time to make rewards that I get that I don't have a choice in. Anyway, the system itself, so, you know, like, I'm item level 360 roughly at the moment, and I'll be doing world quests, and it's like, oh, this one gives a blue item, and it's like, yeah, it's like 325 item loot. I don't need it. So I would rather do a world quest that actually gives me stuff, but the one that rewards me stuff is like on the other end of the continent. So it's like, so I have to fly there just to make emissaries worthwhile. It just makes it feel so slow and just, it's like, oh, yep, I've killed this random rare mob. Time to fly to Vol'dun when I'm in Zandalar. It just feels really boring. It's just not fun. I remember one time I was actually doing one. I was sitting at my desk, I was like, and I was like, whoa, whoa. It's so boring. And you can kind of feel that emissaries are this system that artificially extends gameplay. Like, you have to log in to make sure that, oh, is the right emissary up? And there's nothing wrong with the system of making players log in and be like, oh, what's up today? Like, that's a good feature in an MMO, is to have people log in and be like, oh, what's up today? You know? But the actual like gameplay and the system and the actual engagement is just so lackluster. And make the missions more interesting, less boring. Like, they just kill and fetch and click this sort of stuff. It's just, oh, it's so boring. Like, emissaries, I look at them and I'm like, I have the exact same feeling in my gut that I have when I get home from work and I see a big pile of dishes and I'm like, I should do those. I should do those, or I'm gonna regret it, you know? I'm gonna look back and be like, oh man, should have done those dishes, because now it's morning and I have to wash bowls and spoons and shit, you know? That's how I feel. I feel emissaries are just chores. They're not actually an engaging way for me to get into this game. And I just feel reputation grinds don't have to be as punishing. I remember hearing about in Wrath how you could wear tabards, or tabards, or however you want to say it, and you would acquire rep while doing the dungeon. That's awesome. So you're doing a dungeon, you're doing an engaging, fun thing that tests you and your ability to play your class, but you were also doing something that's considered quite grindy, you know? That would have been, that sounds really good. And I remember when I did level in Wrath, I had a Stormwind one, and I got too exalted with Stormwind because of it, because I was like just a little bit out of Revered with Stormwind. So it was really good, and why don't they do that? Warfronts. So, yeah, I remember when Warfronts were first announced at BlizzCon, and they used words like, you know, hybrid RTS PvE sort of scenario, and I was like, whoa, like RTS? What do you mean by that? And admittedly, before I jump into this, maybe it was my expectations, right? Maybe it was because using the word RTS means to me that it has in-depth actual strategy and gameplay, and you have to be like, okay, we're up to that building tier now, we have to swap up, okay, we can get this upgrade, let's get that upgrade so we can get these units out, stuff like that. And no, that it is not an RTS based scenario at all. I thought of stuff like Nuclear Dawn, where you can, like, one person stays the commander and they initiate, like, okay guys, we're building this base, go over to that base and build it, or like, okay, we're being attacked from this front, go attack there, stuff like that. The RTS element, there is an element to be sure, but it doesn't require actual strategy. Now, to be fair, I've only done 2 of them. You know, in the Alliance cycle, we've only had 2 Warfronts. So, or was it 3? I can't remember now. I don't know. Anyway, I barely even remember me playing a Warfront. And there was stuff like, okay, so there's all this stuff like, oh, take this area and stuff, you know, but everyone just kind of formed a murder ball and ran into the middle of the map and were like, okay, let's just mow down everything. All the enemies are just damage sponges. They don't actually have any real challenge. I mean, even like when you face like Lady Liadrin or, oh crap, who's the other one? He's a very popular orc amongst the Horde. I can't remember his name right now. And he's just a damage sponge. That's all he is. It's just everyone wails on him. There's no strategy like, oh, get out of the way of this, or like, he even does a whirlwind, and people can heal through it. It was just, there's just no sense of urgency. There's no sense of being challenged in that mode. Now, okay, I get why Warfronts were made. They were made for people who are stuck in that little area where it's like they don't raid, they don't PvP. How are they supposed to get beyond how to get really good loot, how to get a good item level, and all that sort of stuff? And I get that it's a good gearing option for people, you know? It's a good pace, and it sets in the theme with the faction war of BFA, but there is just so much that could have been done with this. In my opinion, this is the bit where I can't just be like cold and analytical and be like, well, no, it just, you could have done so much more with it. It's just, like, I can think of so many ways to enhance that mode. Like, actually have a commander, you know, someone who's elected to be the commander, you know, stuff like that. And why can't you go in with your guild? That would be so cool if you went in with your guild and you got, I don't know, you got your guild leader to be like, alright, guild leader, you're commander. What are we doing? It's like, alright guys, we're building the barracks first, get the barracks built. And like, you actually, you know, were like, you could actually right click on the building and build it, you know? And people are like, alright, merge on this building, get it built. You know, pump out those grunts or footmen or whatever. But no, it's just a glorified Arathi Basin, and it felt very boring. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that. There's so much more I could say on Warfronts, but you get the gist of why I'm annoyed at that. No, obviously, me doing this video is a little bit inspired from Asmongold's video. I don't follow Asmongold that much. I don't follow him on Twitch because he streams at times I can't watch. But something did trigger in me when I watched that video. Like, that sense of, yeah, I remember that. I remember those feelings and everything. Like, I remember when, like, this game used to be about, like, aiming for stuff and about how every item drop felt good and everything. Is like, I remember, he was, like, saying, like, oh, I remember when I got that item, but I don't remember when I got my Titan Forge whatever. And I'm like, yeah. And I actually had a moment like that. I think it was Wednesday night for Raid Night. And we were doing, Heroic Aldea. And a cape dropped. A good cape dropped. And I had this weird feeling because it dropped right. And I looked at the item and I was like, yeah, it's good. It's not Titanforge though. I shouldn't be looking at an item and being, that is not the best item I could get. Even though it has good stats, it's perfect for me. But then just go, it's not Titanforge, it's no good. Or I feel like, oh, I lost the lottery. You know, it should just be the item that you get is the item that you get, and it's good. You know. Anyway, that was a bit of a tangent there. I apologize for that, but I have a lot on my mind, and it's just going. Blah, 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 blah. I just need to get it out. So let's move on to island expeditions. Now the thing is, I actually like island expeditions as a game mode. They're really fun. You get tested, and that's the thing. I always bring up this challenge factor in the game. You know, I always bring up how. Oh shit! Oh god! I always bring up how you should be challenged in a game like this. You should be tested. You should be always on your game and be like, you feel like you can't slack off. You can't just be like, okay, I'll just randomly heal and stuff like that and just make sure everyone's topped up. You have to feel like, oh man, people are really dying. Oh, look at you know. And yeah, I do feel that in Island Expeditions. You know, like, they're a good game mode. I reckon they're fun. I like the pressure. I like the fact that there's a roaming horde thing that you might come across and you have to change up. And I don't know, that's fun. I will say though that with the Heart of Azeroth and the Island Expeditions and stuff, is like, yeah, they're fun to do and stuff, and they're a good catch-up system for your Heart of Azeroth. But two things that kind of converge on this is like, there's not a lot of reward in it, you know? When everyone shares the same goal of leveling their Heart of Azeroth, it's like, it's expected, you know? It's just like, oh yeah, it's what you gotta do, you know? And there's not really something that's exciting at all. But pretty much what I'm trying to say is like, because everyone's forced to do one single goal and say you have to level up your Heart of Azeroth because that means you unlock more Azerite traits, which is for your gear progression. And if everyone shares the same goal and stuff like that, it doesn't really feel like you're bringing your own agency into this game, that you're like, oh man, I want to do this with the game. I want to do this with my character. And one thing I wanted to talk about also that is well, it's the main sort of itemization, the main gearing system in BFA is the Azerite gear. Now, a lot of people have complaints with it for whatever reason, and there's so many videos on it, I don't think I need to really get into it. But my reason why I hate Azerite gear, well, I don't hate it, it's just not very satisfying to get. One reason why I don't like it, well, the main reason why I don't like it is because it just feels like a very cheap and rushed. It feels like a very cheap and rushed replacement of the Legion artifact weapons. And none of the traits or really much about it is that interesting. And there's certain things that boggle me a little bit. Like, okay, so the outer ring of the Azerite, of the Azerite traits, you have one generic and 3 spec specific, right? And it's like, okay, you can get one piece of gear and you can be like, okay, well, the holy trait is crap on here. Like, for me, for example, like, for Holy Paladin, the holy traits, they don't really change the gameplay too much. There are a few that are really good. 2 in particular. One that does it so that your Light of Dawn, like your main area of effect heal in front of you, extends to 40 yards. So that's really good to have in a raid, especially when you're spread out and you're like, yeah, throwing random heals about. And also one that makes it so that every time you throw your hammer or you throw your judgment, everyone in the area gets healed for X amount. And it stacks with Judgment of Light and a talent. So you're like, okay, you can synergize those traits and be like, oh, that's really good, that's really good. But then you have other traits that are absolute rubbish. Like there's one for Light of the Martyr, which is an ability it's really something you should avoid using unless it's dire circumstances. And the trait itself is dependent on casting it many, many times. It's like, do you actually play the class? Do you actually play the class before you design this trait? And there's others where it's just really cheap, like, oh, your Holy Shock, if it crits, it does a heal over time. It's like, that's not really game-changing stuff. It's just a pad. It's just like an extra, oh, look at this. And it's like, okay, I can't really scoff at it too much. I mean, it's more healing, but also on top of that, it's like, I think for Holy Shock, it does like 10k heal, I'm pretty sure, roughly. And it does like an extra 600 heal over time. That's not a lot. I mean, like, it might calculate to, oh, a better HPS or whatever, but ultimately it's not fun. It's just not this thing of like, oh wow, I got that ability, you know? It's not like the set bonuses where it's like your auras extend to X amount of range. It's like, holy crap, that's amazing. You know, it's just, oh yeah, it does a bit of heal over time. No, that's wonderful. And I don't know. It's just not that exciting to get. And you know, there's all the other features, all the other problems with it, how the reforging, like for people who don't, well, even like dedicated Mythic Raiders are having this issue where they get Azerite, like the main pieces of Azerite gear, like 385 and whatever, and they have to change traits depending on certain situations, like from going to Mythic Plus to going back to raiding and stuff like that, especially if you get the old dear Azerite gear. I had this issue a couple weeks ago before I just gave up and said like, oh, I can't afford to reforge this much. Like I'd reforge before raid for like 2 weeks, and I remember I lost like 4,000 gold, and for me, I don't have a lot of money. I don't have a lot of gold, so it burnt through like, what would have been like 10% of my gold in a week. And I was like, okay, I'll just have this piece dedicated to having the origination array, and I'll get another piece for my retribution, and I'll get another piece for when I do Mythic Plus. And it feels very burdensome. It's just like, it's a lot of people have discussed this, how like you like back in the day, like in Classic you had like, you know, bags filled with arrows and stuff, and then in BC they're like, oh, by the way, you now have quivers so that your bags aren't taken up filled with crap. It's like filled with arrows. It's like, oh, that was a really good idea. And then like, oh, they put the keychain in the little action bar because your keys were taking up all your bag space. And then it's like, okay, have multiple sets of Azerite gear and clog up your inventory. It seems a bit counterintuitive and a bit backwards to what World of WarCraft has been doing over the last many years. What the hell? But the one thing that keeps me logging in every week is the raid. It's Uldir. It's my guild. I found a Perth guild, and I've been having a really good time, like logging in to do raids and stuff. It does remind me of the good old days of logging into raid and beating challenges with your mates and stuff. I think that's why I play this game. It's not about gear progression. It's not about, I don't know, fuck. It's not about like getting high on the charts and getting high pass scores. And well, it's important, but it's not the sole reason why I play. I play for the social interactivity of playing a RPG with friends, with mates and stuff, you know? And then, like, you know, one thing I like is the PvP. I like the PvP aspect of WoW. But I don't think this is a problem with the game itself, but more a problem with certain people in the community. But, you know, it takes forever to find a queue to do a skirmish arena. Everyone's doing the ranked. But if I hopped into rank and make a pre-made group and be like, oh hey, I have a really low CR, I'm practicing, they'll take me on, and then I'll die, or they'll die and be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? I'm like, I specifically stated that I'm shit and I'm learning and everything, but they'll lose their head at me, and it's like, do people actually want to socialize? Do people actually want to interact with people in a meaningful manner and not be assholes? The fuck is wrong with people sometimes? But I really do like PvP arenas. I think Battlegrounds are a bit too chaotic for me. But to be fair, I've actually paired up with some cool people in arenas, and I remember a few nights, I would have a really good couple of arena sessions. It was really fun. I just hope, I don't know, I can find some more people to do arenas with, I guess. So then, what I want to talk about next is the game itself, in terms of World of Warcraft after X amount of years, and see how it's changed, you know, and talk about what I feel when it comes to this game. Like, not the BFA features, but more or less like the main core parts of the game. So, the difference between like vanilla endgame and BFA, well, modern WoW endgame, is I feel like I'm a slave to numbers. Like, I feel like, you know, that you have that item level, that thing in your character screen. It's like, you have to get it higher, you know? It's a representation of who you are as a player. And when it's not, it's quite contradictory to what it is, because of stuff like Titan forging and stuff like that. And just dumb luck. Well, and RNG as well. Yes, again, RNG is a part of the game. I'm not arguing that RNG is like an evil thing, or it's like, it's when RNG is so noticeable to progression that people hate it. It's what I think a lot of the community is saying on that level. Why is it that item level and Raider IO score is so important? Well, I know why. I think it's because people need a quantified value on how they play the game. They need that thing there to say, see, I'm a good player. I've got that score to prove that I'm a good player. When back in the day, like, I'm sorry, back in the day is like gonna be my most used phrase in this video, I think. But back in the day, like, how good you were as a player was determined by just the fact that you had the tier 2 gear, or pieces of it, or people going, oh man, I did a dungeon with him a few days ago, and he's really good, you know. It was by word of mouth. It was by people talking to one another that we communicated who was a good player. It's like, oh, you know, that character, like, is he any good? And stuff like that. And you're like, I don't know, bring him along for a dungeon. And you would experience if that guy was good or not. And it made for stories, you know. It mattered how friendly people were. It mattered how useful professions were, because it's what you provided. It's what you did. You felt valued in that game, in vanilla WoW. I mean, I watched the response video of Asmongold by Nixium, and he mentions class buffs, and he remembers that, and he mentions this thing. He's like, oh, I remember walking up to a druid in Elwyn and being like, hey, could you give me Mark of the Wild? And I'm like, yeah, I remember that, man. I remember feeling as a paladin, you were a buff bot. So like rogues would walk up to you and be like, hey, could you give me Blessing of Might? And you'd be like, bonk, and you'd be like, and it felt good that people came to you to get shit. You know, it felt good that way. It felt, and people needed to talk. As I've mentioned this briefly in a few instances, but there's really no incentive to socialize in this game. There's no incentive to go, hello, how are you doing? And stuff like that. Like, you go into dungeons and it can be absolutely dead quiet. So why are we rewarding people for not talking, for not socializing in a game? You know, there should be incentive to actually interact. Like, for LFG, for example, right? Now, I have no problem with the LFG system. It's a necessary system for the world that we live in, where people are busy. I appreciate LFG. I think you get a buff if you do the LFG system. Like, you get 10% more whatever. And like, how about you reward me if I actually go out and type LFG looking for more, you know? Like one healing paladin looking for more. Why don't you reward people for actually going out into that world and spamming trade chat and being like, we need what? Like, why can't you do that? Why? Like, what is wrong with it? People may argue with me and be like, oh, it might have this and that. I'm like, but what is really wrong with it? I think one thing also, I've mentioned it a couple times, is Nixium's reply to Asmogold's video. And there's one bit in particular that I really resonate with.
Interact, you know, learn to communicate. We are social animals. We enjoy communication. You know, man is mankind's delight. You will never find happiness by being an individualist. You will always truly find it through other people, through relationships, through friendships, through whatever, like through family, through people, you know, and people that, and MMOs thrive on this aspect. They thrive on the fact that people communicate, they come together, they overcome challenges, they work together, and so on and so forth. That is the strength of an MMO. That is what makes people continue to play an MMO for 12 years, like Asmongold here. It's not the game. Like, fuck the game. Who gives two shits about like the mace or something? Yeah, the mace is something to aspire towards. Like, oh my god, like the you know, the Hand of Ragnaros, the legendary. Yeah, that's something to aspire towards, but it's something that you and your friends can work towards. It's something that you guys can do together, you know, and that's what makes an MMO so fucking awesome. You know what I mean? Like, you and your bros get together and you kick Kel'Thuzad's ass. You know, you kill Jaden back into the Sunwell together. The Sunwell, not the Sunwell. The Sunwell together. That's what makes it cool, man. That's what makes it awesome. You know, and sharing those experiences and then geeking out in school over it. Like, oh man, last night, man, dude, remember when like Timmy, when he stood in the fire like a fucking idiot? Like, yeah, I remember that. That was so fucking funny. That guy sucks. We got to kick him out of the guild. That's what makes an MMO special. And anything that attacks the community aspect of an MMO, anything is bad for the MMO. So when he's talking about this personal loot system, it does attack the community aspect. It does, you know, it makes people less encouraged to communicate, to talk. It doesn't give them that incentive anymore, because who cares? You just get loot. I mean, who cares? You know, fuck DKP, fuck all that stuff. Like, yeah, just give me my free loot.
But that's exactly it. You know, I mentioned it just a few minutes ago, but it's always about just meeting up with mates and overcoming challenges together, and using your character and your usefulness and your skill to overcome a challenge. You know, we're social creatures. We group up together and we want to take on things together, you know? Like, more and more, this game is kind of narrowing its scope to just kind of go, okay, you can do this game without interacting with anyone. Like the mission table. I don't hate the mission table. I like it. I can just hop in and go click, click, click. Okay, I'm getting some rep. That's cool. But it's not something I enjoy. It's not something that I really get excited about. And one thing that Blizzard seems to be doing is, like, you know, with all the hot debate that's going on, they're like, oh, don't worry, guys. We're adding another Warfront. It's like, but Warfronts are bad. Like, why are you adding another one? And it's like, oh, don't worry. More continuation of the war campaign. Or like, hey, another raid. Or like, another mini raid. It's like, hey, you gonna talk about, I don't know, like for me, for instance, is like, I feel that Retribution is like a really boring spec. Are you gonna say like, look, we feel that a lot of DPS specs, in particular Retribution Paladin, feel rather boring. And it's not just me, I have asked other Retribution Paladins, and I have asked up front, do you think the spec is fun? And they go, no, it's not fun, but it has good utility, so I use it. And it's like, alright, so we're all playing a spec that's not fun. Right then. But what? You have to address the root problems. You have to address Titan Forging and how it's, you know, dividing people who commit a lot of time to this game, like Mythic Raiders. Like, item level is not an accurate representation of a character's progression if you have Titan Forging, in my opinion. And one thing I can honestly say, I think they are listening, right? I'm not saying they're not listening. I'm not saying they're an evil company scheming and taking our money. I don't know. I honestly don't know what could be going on. I think it's a problem with communication, honestly. So I've ranted and raved for God knows how long. I don't know how long this video will be edited down to. But one thing I want to just finish with is just, what am I doing from here? You know, am I quitting? Am I taking a break? And since I'm leveling this mage and stuff, I'm having fun. I'll get him to 110. Get him for, I'll boost him. I'll get him to 60. Then I'm gonna boost him because I just want to explore the world of Azeroth and stuff again. And once I get him there to 60, I'm gonna boost him and go for all that stuff. Get him geared. I love the bit where you get to 120. It's like, all right, man, time to gear. And you start hitting like heroics and stuff like that. That's a really fun experience. I really enjoyed that with my guild. But I do feel that once I hit 120 and I start getting geared and I start reaching that end game, it's gonna be like, I'm gonna experience the same things I've been feeling. You know, the same feeling of being a slave to numbers and, you know, feeling like, you know, there's nothing to really reach for, nothing to really, except just get better gear. So my class is better. Just getting the rotation down, stuff like that. And, but I am having fun with the mage. So maybe that will change my opinion. Maybe I won't. Yeah. But I think I might not play my Holy Paladin as much. So I can focus on getting the mage up as well. But yeah. But one thing I found myself doing at lunch at work a few days ago was I was actually Googling like best Wrath of the Lich King private server. And I was seriously considering it. Well, Wrath of the Lich King was the expansion where WoW was at its peak, with like 12 million subscribers, I think. So that indicates something, doesn't it? That indicates where this game was in its prime. So not only as someone who wants to research games and stuff like that, but someone who missed out on it as well because of the situations in life he was in. I feel like I should go back. I don't know when. Might be after this expansion. Who knows? I mean, like, with 8.1 also, they're introducing that Mythic Plus currency for Azerite gear, and I think that's a step in the right direction. I think currencies all around to help with progression is a good thing to do, and I'm pretty that was a thing in Wrath as well. But I don't know what I'm going to do with this game. Like, when the faction war was announced in BFA and all the lead up to it was good, I'm like, man, I'm locked in for this game. This looks fucking awesome. But as I'm playing the game and I'm like, is this really what the game is now? It doesn't feel very sociable. Like, it doesn't feel very good. And that's the thing. It's like, yeah, it's vague things of like, this doesn't feel good, you know? I think I'll play BFA up until the very end, I think that's what I'll do. Unless there's something cataclysmically, like, just horrible that happens. Like, I don't know. I can't imagine what might make me really rage quit with this game. But mainly because of the Perth guild that I'm in is the reason why I'm sticking around. You know, at the end of the day, I play this game because of people. I play it to interact with people who love this world that has been around for, what, almost 2 decades now. Yeah, there is a bit of nostalgia to it. There's a bit, not just because of vanilla, but because of Warcraft 3, because of Warcraft 2. It's part of my childhood, you know? those RTS games, and to have that game continued on in the MMO, it's awesome, you know. And to actually be an adventurer in that world, that's what gets me. That's what gets me into this game also. But I'm not gonna punish myself just to have my nostalgia bone tickled, you know? I don't know. I think I just wanted to vent. I just want to get this out. It's been building up for a few days, ever since I watched the Asmongold video. And I hope that I haven't come across as an angry ranty. I have actually. I've come across as a ranting fanboy. But I don't know, man. I just wanted to talk to you guys. I want to talk to my subscribers and people who watch my Warcraft stuff. I just wanted to get my opinion out there as a player of this game. You know, and I have this channel to do that. And that's about it, really. Thanks for watching, everyone.